The deafening crack of thunder drowned out the helicopter's failing engine as Jack Thompson watched in horror as the control panel sparked and went dark. Beside him, Victoria Winters, the formidable CEO of Horizon Technologies and his direct supervisor for the past 5 years, gripped her armrest, her usual composed demeanor cracking for the first time since he'd known her. "Mayday! Mayday!" The pilot's voice competed with the storm as the helicopter lurched violently. Jack's thoughts flew to his 10-year-old son Noah waiting at his grandmother's house, expecting his father to return from this quick business trip to the Bahamas that Victoria had insisted couldn't be handled remotely. The last thing Jack remembered before impact was Victoria's eyes meeting his, a strange vulnerability in them as she started to say, "If anything happens, I need you to." Then darkness. If you're enjoying this emotional journey, please hit that like button and subscribe for more heartfelt stories that explore the depths of human connection. Jack awoke to the gentle rhythm of waves lapping against sand. His body screamed in protest as he pushed himself upright, taking in the wreckage scattered across the pristine beach. 20 feet away, the helicopter's main cabin lay partially submerged in shallow water. "Victoria," he called out, stumbling to his feet. The pilot was nowhere to be seen, likely still strapped in the submerged cockpit. Jack's stomach twisted with guilt and grief. A weak cough drew his attention to a cluster of palm trees at the edge of the beach. Victoria lay there, her designer suit torn and bloodied, a jagged piece of metal protruding from her side. "Don't move," Jack said, kneeling beside her. "You're injured." Victoria attempted her trademark sardonic smile. "Your talent for stating the obvious is why you're still in middle management, Thompson." The joke fell flat as pain contorted her features. For 3 days, Jack did everything he could to keep them alive. He built a shelter from palm fronds and aircraft debris, collected rainwater in salvaged equipment, and foraged for coconuts and berries while carefully tending to Victoria's wound. The island was small, perhaps a mile across, with no sign of human habitation. At the office, Victoria had been feared rather than respected. The woman who had denied Jack's request for flexible hours after his wife Claire died of cancer 2 years ago, leaving him a single father overnight. The boss who scheduled mandatory weekend strategy sessions knowing he had no childcare options. The executive who seemed to view his dedication to his son as a professional liability. Yet here, as infection set in and Victoria's fever rose, the corporate hierarchy dissolved into something more human. "Tell me about Noah," Victoria whispered on the 4th night, her voice thin with pain. Jack hesitated, surprised by her interest. "He's incredible. Loves baseball and space. Builds these elaborate Lego cities. He's struggling with math this year, but he's determined." His voice caught. "He's already lost his mom. I can't let him lose me too." Victoria was quiet for so long that Jack thought she'd fallen asleep. Then she spoke, her voice uncharacteristically soft. "My father left when I was 4. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. She died my sophomore year of college." Victoria's eyes remained fixed on the makeshift ceiling. "I learned early that depending on others was a weakness I couldn't afford." Jack saw her differently then, not as the ruthless executive, but as someone whose armor had been forged by necessity. On the 6th day, Victoria's condition worsened dramatically. The infection had spread despite Jack's best efforts. He'd been signaling passing planes with a piece of reflective metal, but hope dwindled with each sunset. "Jack," Victoria called to him, her voice barely audible above the waves. "What I was trying to tell you before we crashed." He moved closer, taking her hand without thinking. "Save your strength." "No, listen." Her grip tightened with surprising force. "In my office, behind the painting of Manhattan, there's a safe. Combination is March 17, 82. She paused, fighting for breath. Inside is a letter for Noah. And documents. I've been paying into a trust fund for him since Claire died. Jack stared at her, uncomprehending. What? Why would you? Because I couldn't give you what you really needed, the flexible schedule, the understanding. Her eyes, usually sharp with calculation, were clouded with regret. Company policy tied my hands, but this I could do. Why not tell me? Jack asked, stunned by this revelation. A ghost of her professional smile appeared. Sentiment is vulnerability, Thompson. And Victoria Winters doesn't do vulnerable. Her attempt at humor faded as she gripped his arm. Promise me you'll get back to Noah. And if I don't make it? You will, Jack interrupted fiercely. If I don't, she continued, tell him the dragon lady from Dad's office wasn't all bad. Before Jack could respond, the distant whir of helicopter blades cut through the air. A search and rescue chopper appeared over the horizon, drawn by the reflection of his makeshift signal. As medical personnel rushed toward them, Victoria's eyes fluttered closed, her breathing shallow but persistent. Stay with me, Jack pleaded, refusing to let go of her hand even as the paramedics worked. Noah needs to meet the woman who saved his dad. 2 months later, Jack stood in Victoria's hospital room in Miami. Against overwhelming odds, she had survived emergency surgery and weeks of intensive care. She looked different without her power suits and perfect makeup, more human somehow. The board expects me back next month, she said, though they both knew her recovery would take much longer. Jack placed a handmade card on her nightstand. From Noah. He says thank you for making sure his dad came home. Victoria's expression softened as she opened the card, revealing a crayon drawing of 3 figures, a small boy, a tall man, and a woman with what appeared to be a crown on her head. He thinks CEOs wear crowns, Jack explained with a smile. Smart kid, Victoria replied, a genuine warmth in her voice that Jack had never heard before. About that trust fund. She held up a hand. We don't need to discuss that. Yes, we do. Jack sat on the edge of her bed. Not just the money, but what you said on the island about vulnerability. He took a deep breath. When you come back to work, I'm resubmitting my request for flexible hours. And this time, we're going to find a way to make it work, company policy be damned. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Is that how you address your superior, Thompson? No, he said. It's how I talk to someone who's seen me at my worst and still had my back. For a moment, her carefully constructed facade cracked completely, revealing something authentic and unguarded. I suppose near-death experiences warrant some policy revisions. 6 months later, Jack left the office at 3:30 p.m., a previously impossible luxury, to pick up Noah from baseball practice. Afterward, they drove to a small cafe where Victoria waited, her cane propped against the table, a symbol of how far she still had to go in her recovery. Mr. Thompson, she greeted formally, then broke into a genuine smile as Noah approached. And you must be the famous Noah. Your dad never stops talking about you. As Jack watched his son chatting animatedly with the woman who had once been the most intimidating figure in his professional life, he marveled at how quickly everything could change: a helicopter crash, a confession on a deserted island, a promise made in what they thought were final moments. Victoria caught his eye over Noah's head and smiled, not her boardroom smile, but something real and unguarded. Sometimes, Jack thought, it takes losing everything to find what truly matters. And sometimes, the people we least expect become the ones who change our lives forever. Life rarely follows the path we expect. For Jack and Victoria, it took being stranded on an island facing death to discover the humanity in each other. What walls have you built in your own life? What connections might be waiting just beyond your comfort zone? Remember to like this video and subscribe for more stories that remind us how the human spirit can triumph even in our darkest moments. 1 year after the crash, Jack stood in Victoria's corner office, watching the Manhattan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The company had changed dramatically under Victoria's new leadership philosophy: flexible schedules for parents, remote work options, and a daycare center on the 3rd floor that Noah occasionally visited after school. "The board meeting starts in 5, Victoria said, entering with her characteristic efficiency, though the cane she still used served as a reminder of all they'd survived. "I finished the quarterly projections," Jack replied, handing her a tablet. "And Noah wanted me to ask if you're still coming to his science fair tomorrow." Victoria smiled, a genuine expression that had once been rare but now came easily. "Wouldn't miss it. His volcano better erupt this time." As they walked toward the boardroom, Jack marveled at how their relationship had evolved. Victoria had promoted him to Chief Operations Officer 6 months ago, a position created specifically to implement the company's new work-life balance initiatives. "Sometimes I still expect to wake up back on that island," Victoria admitted quietly as they waited for the elevator. Jack nodded. "Noah had nightmares for months that I wouldn't come home. And now? Now he has 2 adults he can count on instead of 1. Jack hesitated before adding, "Claire would have liked you, you know." Victoria's eyes softened at the mention of Jack's late wife. "I wish I could have known her." The elevator doors opened, revealing the company's executive team. As Victoria stepped forward to lead the meeting, Jack noticed how the other executives now looked at her with respect rather than fear. The island hadn't just changed their relationship, it had transformed Victoria's entire approach to leadership. Later that evening, Jack and Noah set the table for dinner while Victoria uncorked a bottle of wine in the kitchen of Jack's modest suburban home. These Friday dinners had become a tradition over the past few months, a chance for Noah to bond with the woman who had, unexpectedly, become a steady presence in his life. "Dad says you're helping with my college fund," Noah said as Victoria placed a salad on the table. Victoria shot Jack a look. "Your father talks too much." "Is it because you were friends with my mom?" Noah asked innocently. Victoria sat down, choosing her words carefully. "I never had the privilege of meeting your mother. But I do know she raised an extraordinary son, and she married a man who would do anything for you." She smiled at Jack across the table. "Sometimes family isn't just who you're born to, it's who you choose to keep in your life, even when it's complicated." As they ate dinner, laughing over Noah's school stories and Victoria's tales of corporate absurdity, Jack felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced since before Claire's diagnosis. Life would never be what he had planned, but perhaps it could still be beautiful in ways he hadn't imagined. After Noah went to bed, Jack and Victoria sat on the back porch, the spring air cool but pleasant. "The trust fund paperwork is finalized," Victoria said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Noah's education is secure through graduate school if he wants it." "Thank you," Jack said simply, knowing that no words could adequately express his gratitude. Victoria waved away his thanks. "I've been thinking about taking some time off. Real time, not just a weekend." "You? Vacation? Has hell frozen over?" Jack teased. "The doctors say I should try somewhere warm for my recovery. Maybe the Bahamas." Her eyes twinkled with mischief. "Though perhaps we should avoid helicopters this time." Jack laughed, then grew serious. "We could make it a family trip. Noah's spring break is coming up." Victoria's expression softened with vulnerability that once would have been unthinkable for her to show. Is that what we are now? A family? Jack reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. I think we're whatever we choose to be. The island taught us that much. As the stars appeared overhead, Jack thought about how life's greatest gifts often come disguised as its greatest challenges. A helicopter crash that should have ended everything had instead been the beginning of something neither of them could have predicted. Victoria leaned her head against his shoulder, her corporate armor completely set aside. I never thought I'd say this, Thompson, but getting stranded on that island with you might have been the best thing that ever happened to me. Jack smiled, squeezing her hand. Even with the near-death experience? Even with that, she confirmed. Some things are worth the risk. As they sat together under the night sky, Jack knew that their journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, merging their lives, helping Noah navigate this new relationship, balancing their professional and personal connections. But after surviving a deserted island together, these obstacles seemed manageable. Sometimes the most beautiful destinations aren't on any map. For Jack and Victoria, it took losing their way to find exactly where they were meant to be. If you've enjoyed this conclusion to Jack and Victoria's journey, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about how life's unexpected detours can lead to our most meaningful connections. Remember, it's not the destination that defines us, but how we choose to travel the path, and who we choose to travel it with.